indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to thank everyone for joining us this morning. Ms. Tucker, may I please have the roll call?
Member Feller,
Here.
Member Young,
Present.
Member Shelley,
Here.
Member Bender,
Here.
Member Costa,
Merry Christmas.
Member Sixma,
Here.
and Chair Mills is absent.
We have minutes from the October 20th, 2022 meeting to consider today. Is there any discussion or a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes if there's no further discussion.
Second.
The minutes from the October 20th, 2022 meeting has been motioned to approve, and by Mr. Young, second by Ms. Shelley. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. If anyone would like to speak for or against any of the cases being heard today, please fill out a form found in the back of the chambers and give it to the staff to my left, please. We will be limiting you to the 3-minute time limit. After the comments have been heard, I will give the applicant an opportunity to address any concerns the speaker may have and answer any questions the commission may have. Mr. Sawyer, would you please give us legal comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is for the members of the public as well as for any applicants that decisions by this body on special exception cases and cases which rezone real property from one classification to another pursuant to the zoning ordinance are recommendations only to the county council and do not constitute a final hearing. So new evidence may be introduced at the county council public hearing. Decisions on variances made by this body constitute final action subject to an appeal to county council. So what that means is that no new evidence may be presented at the time of the county council public hearing on the appeal of the variance. An aggrieved party that appeals such a decision is confined to the record made before this body. And hearings by this body on rezoning, special exceptions, and variances are quasi-judicial in nature, meaning that this body is acting more like a court and must take into account all oral, written, and demonstrative evidence presented. Their decisions on these cases must be based on competent substantial evidence in the record, and competent substantial evidence has been defined as that evidence a reasonable mind would accept to support a conclusion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Following legal comments, I would like to ask the commission to disclose for the record any ex parte communications that have occurred before the public hearing that a vote is to be taken on any quasi-judicial matter. Mr. Feller.
None.
Mr. Young.
None.
Ms. Shelley.
None.
Mr. Costa.
I did have a conversation with Nika, but I don't believe it's on anything we're voting on today.
Okay. Mr. Sixma. None. And none for myself. Ms. Smith, are there any items to be continued or withdrawn today?
No, sir.
We don't have any old business to consider today. Ms. Shelley, would you read the first case, please?
Yes, sir. Case number S23-002, a special exception for an animal kennel on prime agriculture A1 zoned property.
Mr. Shams.
Hi, good morning. Steve Shams with Planning and Development Services. So just before I start, revisions were provided by email yesterday to remove the word amendment from the staff report. So the applicant is requesting special exception on A1 zone property for an animal kennel. The property is 12.5 acres and developed with a single family home and other agricultural structures. As far as the kennel itself, the applicant is proposing a main building with 18 dog kennels, totaling 1,500 square feet, 2 concrete outdoor kennel areas totaling 3,000 square feet, a screened fence around the entire building area is a 265-foot perimeter, and parking for five spaces with 1 ADA accessible space. The site is accessed by Appaloosa Trail, which is unpaved and private. The business hours are proposed to be Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and by appointment. And the services on site to be provided are boarding, grooming, training, and dog supply sales. They will have 5 full-time employees and 1 part-time groomer, and they expect approximately 12 clients per day. Staff found this special exception is consistent with the A1 zoning as it meets the 10-acre requirement and the rural future land use as it provides economic development in rural areas. In addition, it meets the setback requirements for kennels, which are specific to that use, which are 100 feet on each side. Overall, staff recommends approval as it's consistent with the existing area, A1 zoning class, future land use, and the criteria for a kennel and a special exception. Staff does recommend the following conditions. Outdoor areas for dogs shall be double fenced. The applicant shall apply for conceptual site plan and final site plan prior to operating the business. Normal business hours shall be 8 to 5, 7 days per week. And access roadways to the site must be paved unless the requirement is waived by the Development Review Committee. And I'm available for questions or comments.
Do we have any questions for staff, Mr. Felder?
I do. Looking at the pictures, it shows 2 parcels. Parcel to the right of the road, a parcel to the left of the road, correct?
Yes, so the
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
So the parcel that they were looking to put this on is on the left-hand parcel.
Correct.
If they did not own the other parcel, does this parcel meet the requirements to do the special exception?
No, the second parcel was added to meet the acreage requirement.
And it's only considered adjoining property because the street is there. They meet at that little corner, correct?
Yes, it's the common ownership.
That's the common ownership
Yeah.
there.
Scratching it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Was there any contact with the neighbors? Anyone voicing an opinion from the neighborhood, from the neighbors?
Not to my knowledge, no.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
For the record, Nika Hosseini, the law firm of Cobb Cole, 231 North Woodland Boulevard in DeLand. Good morning. So a couple of points I want to hit on that Mr. Feller you brought up. My client owns those 2 parcels, but also if you look up to the north, that parcel, I think I forgot, Stephen, how many acres that is, but he owns that entire parcel as well. And that will also be added to the overall plan. Again, it's heavily wooded, won't be used for anything, really just natural tree area. So really it's 3 parcels in that area, and what we're focused on in terms of project area is the lower left-hand corner of that left-hand parcel. Just a couple of notes, since Stephen did a great job kind of going through what the goal is here for the client. The closest residence, I believe 360 feet away, so it's substantial. The closest residence is substantially away from what we intend to do. We have around 12 potential vehicles a day at most. This is, a business that the residents of the parcel who currently live there will be participating in running this business. So you have 2 owners who live on site 24/7, who will be there to take care of the dogs and make sure that everything is going well, and then a couple of additional employees that will be able to come on site during the day and assist with the kennel. This isn't anything too large. It can't house too many dogs or puppies. I call all dogs puppies. I think it's cuter, but I believe it's about 18 at most. And so it's a very sophisticated business operation. My client has been doing this in numerous other jurisdictions. This is kind of what they do. They're trying to settle down a bit, and they've moved here. They've sold their other house in Vero Beach, and they're trying to just kind of continue their business, but on a smaller scale, and do what they love to do. And so that's really what I have here. We meet all the criteria for a special exception, and it is a special exception in the A1 zoning category. So we do meet the future land use, we do meet the zoning, and by meeting the criteria listed, as staff has noted, it is a permitted use within the zoning category. So as a result of that, we do respectfully request that you approve this request and recommend approval to the the county council. Here for any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Young?
I'm just curious, looking at this and knowing dogs and all, how about, has there been any input from the two tenants that are fitted in between this operation?
We have not heard anything, no.
Have they been consulted or talked to?
They received notice.
They received notice. That's my big concern, is the noise. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. I will.
Thank you.
We have one in attendance that would like to speak to this, and then we'll give you an opportunity to come back. Mr. Kaczewski? Yeah. Come to the, would you come to the mic, give your name and address for the record, please?
Bill Kuchewski, 2975 Appaloosa Trail. I'm right across the street,
Thank you.
right across from his driveway. Now, he already has kennels. I assume that's what all the dogs are making a noise now?
If you could ask your question to the commission up here, address us, and
There's,
then,
he's across the street, it's his house and
Okay.
most of the property. To the right in the back, that's where the dogs are now, making enough noise now. Morning, noon, they stop about 8 o'clock at night, that's it. I'm just wondering if he plans on putting them across the street from me.
so where are you? How close are you to?
My concern was.
I'm on the other side of the street. You can't see it. If you see where his house is,
Clarify his house, I'm sorry, I don't know which one you mean. Is it the rectangle?
Where the arrow is?
The L-shaped box.
right where the red box on Appaloosa changes. Oh, you passed it. Almost there, right there, it's his house.
That's where the
Right
house
across
is.
the street on that property that you don't see, that's where my house is. Now, right now, we hear the dogs are in the back section somewhere. Those we can hear all the time, especially when they feed them. He says, oh, it's when they're feeding. And for breakfast, I guess it is, and then lunchtime, noontime, that's when you hear all the dogs barking. I'm just concerned he's gonna put them across the street. If they're gonna stay in the back where he is now, I mean, we still hear the dogs, but it's okay. But if he's gonna put them across the street from my house, I don't wanna hear that all day long. I'm retired. I don't need to listen to dogs barking all night. Now, that's my concern. You know, he said he was gonna put kennels there, that was his idea. I was guessing in the beginning, all the way in the back where there's nobody. Except for these three amigos, they do landscaping. So they're just in and out. And of course, they're loud noise when they party all the time. That's it. That's my only concern there. As long as it's not across the street, it's fine. If he keeps them in the back where the original owner had it before, they put in, I think he was putting in like a crawfish farm or something back there. I don't know what he had. But he was in and gone, and then he bought it, and that's where the dogs are now. So on that picture, when you look all the way to the right, back there somewhere behind the house, that's where those dogs are. Behind there, there's nothing but woods for miles. I mean, it's not gonna bother anybody. I'm just worried if he plans on putting kennels across the street.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please, Mr. Felder.
I'm just gonna show this really quickly. You said that your house is down here. I'm sorry.
Oh, draw it on the picture.
Can I draw on this?
Yeah, you can draw on that, just hit. No,
Yeah, if you go back up, I can draw.
there.
So that,
Okay, there.
okay, so, does it matter what kind? So, you live here, is that correct? Somewhere around here?
Yep, right across the street.
Okay. You're saying the dogs are here, correct, right now?
They're somewhere back there, yeah.
Back here. And we'll get the.
Behind all of that is nothing but woods.
We'll get the applicant back up here, but you said you're concerned if the dogs go here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's all I needed.
Because I know he has his dogs, his personal dogs are right next to his house, and they're fenced in. I'm not worried about that. Yes, I think 3 dogs or something like that.
Clear it.
I tried to clear, it's not working.
That's all I'm worried about there. If he expands over there, because that's where most of the property is.
Well, maybe not.
Just, Ms. Shelley.
No, I'm ready to hear the applicant.
Okay.
answer his question.
Is that it?
Thank you, sir.
So I think what he's referring to is his personal dogs right now. I believe he does have a few dogs that he just, like anyone has, as pets. Where we are having the project area is, it is kind of where you see, hard to point to and hard to see where I'm looking, but to the left-hand side of that parcel in that area. Now, we have to have a certain amount of project area. We have to meet certain requirements when we're doing a special exception. So per your code, we can't fully decide that we want to just kind of use this back corner. We have to meet 100-foot setbacks. So we physically cannot put the dogs in that back corner. We won't meet the special exception criteria. We would have loved to do that. That probably would have been easier for us to do. But that's not what your code states. Your code has very specific requirements of how to meet the special exception criteria. We went through those requirements with your staff. They're fairly stringent requirements, and in order for us to be able to meet those requirements, we have to be able to, put this together in a certain way. So we did get an engineer. We hired an engineer who worked with your staff. We did go through staff review and figure out the exact location that makes sense that staff agreed to put them there. So I do understand his concerns. Our goal obviously is to ensure that when we build these kennels and we have these structures, one, they'll be at least double fence, if not triple fence, and two, to be able to make sure that the business hours are from 8 to 5. And so after that, it's essentially, nap time to some degree. And obviously, dogs make noise. We know this. It is a rural area. It's ag, so you're expected to see some level of noise from farm animals. But that is the reason we chose that particular area, is based on communication with your staff and with our engineer.
Any questions, Mr. Felder? Yes, please.
Then my only question is, I'm sorry to split it up, but the parcel that we're talking about, separate from the parcel they live on, does not meet the A1 requirements by itself, correct? It does not meet 10 acres for the special exception.
The left-hand
The
parcel
left-hand
is not 10 acres, but it's been combined. So the parcel is not just that parcel. Per the property appraiser, and we went through the requirements to combine the lots, so they are currently one lot. They are not separate.
All righty.
Mr. Young?
Okay, if I understand you right, they're gonna be in this area I'm covering with blue?
Correct.
Okay, which is somewhat across the street from the
Correct.
gentleman next to the thing. Okay, I'm still concerned about these two a little bit.
So, to be fair, those are businesses being run out of those structures that are, like the gentleman said, landscaping businesses that.
Oh, those two that I have X's on are businesses. They're not
Correct.
residents.
Whether they are,
They may be the home-based businesses. Remember, the
Yes.
state
Okay.
law basically says so long as it looks like a house, they don't
Okay.
care what business occurs inside the house.
and so
Okay.
they're in and out, and they also make.
So
money.
now he has, right here behind his house, he has a couple personal dogs.
I'm not sure.
They're are they there or are they over here?
I don't know where his dogs are. They're his personal dogs, so I presume that they migrate with him.
Okay, but then we're gonna put 18 dogs in this other spot right here.
Correct.
That's, okay, thank you.
Now, just to clarify, your special exception requires substantial requirements, including buffers, a certain amount of trees on the property, a certain distance away from other properties. And so all of these provisions in your code have been contemplated for this specific use. And so if you look at the staff report, you'll notice there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 different criteria, which aren't the general special exception criteria. Those are different. Those we have to meet no matter what. That's the, 100-foot setback. There are 21 criteria specific to a dog kennel that your staff is based on their review saying that we meet every single one of those 21 requirements. On top of those requirements, you have the general special exception requirements for any zoning category. You'll see them that you have to meet, which is, again, things like it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and it meets all the requirements imposed by federal and state law and, things of that nature. And so your staff is stating that we meet the general requirements of any special exception, and on top of that, there are certain requirements imposed by your code just for a kennel, and that we meet all of those 21 requirements as well. And so if you review those requirements that your staff has laid out and the responses to the same, and we meet those requirements, legally we have the entitlement to continue and have a special exception on the property for a kennel. And so that was really our goal here. Our goal is to be good neighbors. Our client's goal is to live here, and so he doesn't want to hear barking all throughout the night either. Of course, he'll be sleeping very close to where those kennels are. He is a professional. This is what he does. The assumption is that maybe, his dogs are different than the dogs that they'd be boarding. Our goal here is to ensure that whatever we do not only complies with the code, but if there are issues, we want to resolve those with our neighbors because he's going to be here forever. So we don't want to have any issues. Our goal is to make sure that the roadway will be stabilized. It will be his responsibility to make sure that that is okay, work with the neighbors and do what we need to do to be able to run a successful business that isn't causing any trouble for anyone else. So that's our goal. We do feel that we meet the requirements. We're happy to speak to our neighbors across the street as well and see if we can come up with a plan in between now and county council to ensure that we all agree on what we want to do moving forward, because we do want to be good neighbors and we do want to move forward with this use. So happy to answer any additional questions, but that's what we respectfully request.
Mr. Costa?
Staff required you to submit a site plan.
Correct.
Staff required you to submit a site plan to scale
Correct.
on the actual parcel, correct?
Yes.
Okay, staff, it's not in our package, which would be very helpful in this particular case to have that overall view, which we're trying to draw now with red squiggly lines. So for future reference, can we have those full-size site plans in here with the layout? That would make our job a lot easier. So can we go back to the aerial, please? So just to confirm, he lives in the upper right-hand corner of the picture, correct?
He will be living on site, yep.
He lives there currently?
Correct.
And with his, assuming with his personal dogs?
Correct.
Okay. And the kennel's going on the left-hand, the lower left-hand corner of that parcel?
Correct.
The flag-shaped parcel, correct? Somewhere in that general vicinity?
Correct.
Where all that spaghetti mess is, right?
100-foot setback from
You
each
have a
side.
100-foot, that's why I'm looking for the site plan, because it would show me where that 100-foot line is, because this is obviously not the scale. So it could actually be further, it could be almost in the center line of that flag, as opposed to closer to Appaloosa Trail.
It is.
And I can't visualize that from the data that I have in front of me. With that being said, this gentleman has done this for how many years? Estimate.
At least 20, 30.
Okay. And they're currently operating a kennel in Volusia County at all, or they're just relocating and are
They
now?
just relocated to Volusia
And they're
Correct.
basically restarting their business
Yes.
back up? Okay. All right, and all the neighbors have been posted?
Correct.
We've only had one individual show up?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need.
Mr. Costa,
Yep.
it's not the best visual,
What page are you on?
but I don't know if you.
Yeah, I have that one. I have that one as well,
Okay.
but it doesn't give me it.
I know that, and we'll bring full-size copies, but just as a general note, we're required to have fire access,
Mm-hmm.
and so a way of semi-visualizing how far away it is from the street. If you look, this is the property line over here.
Sure.
And we have a full access of fire right here, and then parking, and then the kennel.
I see the roundabout, yeah.
So I mean, you're talking about, that's about half of, it goes halfway up, and then we have the kennel. So it is not right by the roadway. It can't be. It can't be.
Right, you haven't been to DRC yet, have you?
Well, we did go preliminarily through staff review, not the DRC, just through staff review.
Okay.
So if you'll notice,
I saw one of the comments in there.
comments, yeah, you'll see the comments. And so let's not forget, this is the beginning, right? We have to go through site plan after this.
Well, it's a comment, it's also a troubling one, the very last one on there about making you pave a rural road.
Yeah, so
I find that a bit overreaching, but that's a subject for a different day.
that's a different subject, but just to note on that, I don't know if you all remember, one of the big cases that we had that was similar to this was called Avellino, and it was 10 acres, A1, the same thing. And what he was doing is he had dog events on his property, and there was conservation area to the left, and the neighbors are pretty far away to the right. And he also had a private roadway, and the requirement was theoretically, per the code, to pave it. But so what we did there is we said, look, we agree with the neighbors, we will maintain this roadway, we will pitch in, this amount and make sure that everything is going smoothly, because their client's coming to this property, and so we want to make sure that the roadway is the way it is. So DRC was okay with that when we were able to illustrate and prove that we can maintain the roadway and the neighbors would be happy. We were able to move forward on that. Just a sidebar, but that.
Anyone else? Mr. Sixman.
Do you know how many dogs he personally has right now?
I do not.
I'm just wondering because the gentleman said they get loud right now.
Right.
And I'm just thinking his personal dogs and plus 18 more right by his house.
Right.
Okay.
I will say, I don't disagree with that, but this is A1 zoning, and if you're gonna do a special exception for this, it is contemplated by your code to do it in the zoning category, so it is deemed compatible with both the zoning and the future land use. I'm happy to take some of those puppies off of his hand, if he would like me to, but I don't know if he'll agree to that quite yet. So, look, our goal is to make sure that our neighbors are happy and that we're happy so that we can continue a successful business that he's been running for so long. And so we do not, if there is an issue with the dogs, we are going to ensure that we repair that issue and move forward, because he is not the type of person, he has not been successful for this long doing what he's been doing without building those relationships and ensuring that his neighbors, wherever he has been doing this, are not also on board with what he's doing.
Mr. Felder, you had another question? Okay. One thing that I'm just going to say that kind of caught my attention that when you said it, like they operate between 8 and 5, and then after that it's nap time. When have you ever seen that have the ability to tell a dog it's time to go to sleep and we won't hear you again until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning? I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And stuff.
So
They're going to bark whenever they want to bark, and regardless what time of day it is.
Right.
So
the difference here is that they're not running around on the property, right? They're not running around going up to, I mean, it'll be double or triple fence. They're not running around going up to the property line and barking like you see, somebody letting a dog out in their yard, right? They're in a kennel. They're boarded. So they're boarded in a kennel. And so, again, 100, 150, 200, more than that at this point off the property line. So that's what I mean by it's nap time, is that they'll be in a kennel specifically per one dog per each kennel, contained in a structure that's double or triple fenced, 360 feet from the nearest residence. I'm not saying you're not going to hear anything. I'm at potential times that we don't want to hear something, but what I'm saying is they're not going to be running around the yard chasing each other and barking going up to the property line. they'll be, you know, consolidated in that kennel area, away from any of the property lines to that degree. And so that provides some level of certainty that at least they're not going to be kind of going wild, all running, all 18 of them, or however many he ends up actually boarding, right? But it's not just boarding, it's also grooming and doing other things throughout the day. So depending on how many he has, we'll see how many actually are being boarded. And they're not being boarded every day. Typically, the popular times for boarding are going to be during the holidays when people are leaving. If people aren't leaving and keeping their dogs here, then there is no boarding occurring. It's mostly grooming and other type of similar associated uses. So we're not talking about 18 dogs every day, 365 days a year. That's not what's happening. We're talking about during holidays, during certain times of the year, Christmas time, things of that nature, where they do that. So again, I think what's important here is that this is the contemplated use of this zoning. And so if we meet the criteria of that, and we've kind of gone out of our way to start the site plan process already, just to make sure that we're in good shape when we do move forward to site plan, and you know, move everything out, look at the fire access, and do all of that. So we are meeting all the requirements of your code, and if that is the case, then we are entitled to this use. And again, I'm not saying that this is, you know, this is a special exception. This is what we're here for, is to have that dialogue and to see if we meet those additional stringent criteria to move forward. That's the goal. I believe that we do, your staff believes that we do, and that's why we're here to move forward. This is agricultural zoning. This is what's done in these areas. We've had numerous other cases of dogs and other types of animals come through this process for the exact same thing. We think this is a pretty good project. This is a high-level client that is doing high-level work here, and so we do think it'll be a benefit to the community, and we do think that it is a use that makes sense in this area. Again, the road comes to a terminus, and then you have these properties, and he went and purchased the other properties as well in order to ensure that he has enough room, you know, one, to be able to have buffering, but two, in case, you know, there are neighbors that have complaints, he doesn't want to you know, deal with that. And so I'll be quiet now, but again, my point is just that this is consistent with the zoning, it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. Your staff doesn't meet all those requirements, and so we respectfully request that you recommend approval.
Right, I can appreciate all of that, but the concern has never been the dogs running around and going wild and having access to the whole thing. It's noise, whether it's confined in a building or in the yard.
Agreed.
So I understand everything that you're saying, but I'm just trying to make sure that it's not misrepresented, that this is a great project because they're not allowed to just have the ability to run wherever they want to run.
Right.
Dogs, if they're in this building, they're going to make noise. If they're in the yard, they're going to make noise, and there's no way that you can control that.
Right.
And I think that's what the concern is.
Right. And
I don't want to be in my bed asleep at midnight and a rabbit run across and one dog start, and that one dog starts, now I got 18. And then when you said you're probably not going to be full unless you have during the holiday periods when people are traveling.
right.
If he's in business, his optimal goal should be to have 18 dogs in those
Of course.
kennels 365 days
Of
a
course.
year. So, but the way that you're presenting it is we're not going to have that until it's the holiday time. And the rest of the time, we only may have 2 dogs or 5 dogs or whatever it may be. So I don't want to lessen what the impact may be just to kind of get through this. So I just want the whole picture shown. That's all I'm trying to do.
Right, no, I agree, and we will be in compliance with your code, we'll be in compliance with your noise ordinance, and compliant with everything else. And so optimally, yes, again, reading from your own staff report that it mentions, hey, typically, these types of facilities, again, I'm saying typically, ideally, theoretically, we want it to be full all the time. But typically, these types of facilities have been doing it for a very long time. those are the peak times where everyone brings their dogs. That's all I'm mentioning. Again, up to 18, that's our goal. Everything that we present in the staff report is correct, but those are just typically, as your staff noted, when it will most likely definitely be full.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Costa has a question
Yes.
for you.
Please, staff, if you could put up page 13 of 32. Can we zoom in on that at all, or just, it's static? In this picture, where it shows the kennel itself, so you're showing a kennel for 18 dogs
Yes,
enclosed, and then you have a 10 by 20 perimeter for a dog, it's a dog, exterior dog run, correct?
correct,
And around that 10 by 20 exterior, I also see a proposed screen fence.
correct.
Which is obviously a noise abatement fence, I'm assuming, as
Correct.
well. So, not having more detail, the question then is it an 8-foot fence? Is it a solid wood fence? Is it a chain link fence? All those things that I'm throwing out answer some of those questions, as opposed to if a rabbit runs by, a chain link fence versus
Right.
a screened wooden fence or PVC fence is different.
Right.
And also, a wood fence will support and absorb more of any kind of noises than a
Right.
open chain link fence. So those are the kind of details that I think would give some of the folks on this commission a little more pause. And I just wanted to point that out, is that the more detail that we have,
Right.
the better off we can service
Right.
and do our jobs.
Mr. Costa, you're correct. Those are typically provided at site plan, but in this scenario, typically our client is agreeable to what staff sees fit and what is listed in your code. Again, our goal is to abate the noise as much as anyone else's goal is to abate the noise. And so that is why we have double or triple fenced that area as well, and why we have pulled it back so much.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Young.
I just like to comment too. I take my dog to a dog kennel other than on the holidays. In fact, I don't take mine at holidays. I take him with me. So he's going to be there all the time. But the second thing that I'd like to make, two other comments. At the dog kennel I take, they put a screen and a fence up, but it's just a mesh fence. And it doesn't, if you go by there, there's 22 dogs in that kennel at Pet Paradise, and it's noisy as heck when those dogs get going. And the last thing I would say is, it's out in the wilderness to some extent. And when I take my dog to the campsite, he's noisier than when he's at home, because there's more animals to bother him and everything like that. So there's some variables that you're not mentioning here. I'd like to see, like Mr. Costa says, is that I know that there's some kind of abatement to keep those dogs not only from seeing animals that are straying, and I mean not your animals, but wild animals. That's what sets the dogs off. I mean, when a rabbit or a bird or a squirrel comes by, particularly squirrels, they set my dog off when I go to the camp. So I'd like to see what your abatements are. I'm really on the border with this thing, with the neighbors. That's just my comment.
Mr. Felber.
Yeah, can you bring up 32 of 32 really quickly? Oh, I'm sorry, I've got you running all over the place.
The last page. Last page.
Yeah. There, that one's fine. Yep, that's perfect. So let me see something really quickly. I kind of circled it on mine. To the north, that rectangular lot that touches both the left-hand and right-hand parcel, is that the lot that this person also owns? That this client owns?
Yes.
That lot right there?
Correct.
You don't have to answer per se, but from my perspective, why wasn't that adjoined to the lot that they're putting it on versus the one across the street? I know it doesn't matter per se. It doesn't matter. From my perspective, it would look less like they backed into 10 acres and more like they had 10 acres. So it helps me to understand that they own that parcel up there
Right.
as well too, but that they can but because it's not adjoined, they can sell that parcel, so.
So
That's
the only reason is that that parcel was in probate, and so we weren't able to secure that parcel until fairly recently. We had a contract on it for about a year. It had to go through this whole probate process. It was a mess.
Okay,
But we do own it. No intent on selling it. We are adjoining it.
You
We're
are
combining
adjoining
it. Yes.
So you just answered for me my biggest question, which was, I don't like backing into code, you know, like we lucked into it because we owned across the street or whatever else. That does, to me, make this a bona fide A1. I think that we are way too stringent on jumping in and telling people what they can and can't do on their property, but I do agree with everything that's been said here, and that's mostly, I think, just a how we do it. If we had all the information and we saw all of the fences and everything like that, I think we could make a very easy decision on it. Without that information, I'm inclined to go with the applicant at this point. It seems like they've done everything that they needed to do to put this forward, and our lack of information doesn't come from that. So thank you for clarifying
Thank
the
you.
ownership.
Mr. Costa?
Yeah, before we move on and to the next, the rest of this, would the applicant be, would they be okay with the following change to the staff recommendation number 1? That outdoor areas for dogs shall be double fenced to ensure adequate containment and noise abatement.
Yes.
And of course, noise abatement is going to be subjective, but that, I'll leave that to the DRC to decide what those numbers, what that would be.
What page was that, Mr. Costa?
So that's the staff recommendations on page 11 of 32.
It's number 1 on staff recommendations. Yep.
So you're okay with that, but
Oh, yeah,
that change?
definitely.
Okay.
We were intending on doing that anyways.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to close the public hearing and now see if the commission has more comments or a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Please.
I make a motion that we recommend that we forward special exception case S-23-002 to County Council with a final action of recommendation of approval with conditions 1 through 4, and condition number 1 to read, and I'm just going to read the last few pieces of it, to ensure adequate containment and noise abatement.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Costa, second by Ms. Shelley, that we forward the special exception case number S-23-002 to the County Council for final action with a recommendation of approval. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. It's 1, 2, 3, it's 4 to 2. Mr. Sixmer and Mr. Bender in opposition. Ms. Shelley, would we have the next case, please?
Yes, sir. Case number CPA-22-010, small-scale comprehensive plan amendment from the urban medium intensity UMI and commercial future land use FLU designation to the commercial FLU designation.
Mr. Shams.
Hi, good morning. Stephen Shams again, Planning Development Services. I want to start by saying that this CPA also has an accompanying rezoning and special exception, both of which are determinant on the CPA passing. So overall, this is a future land use change from urban medium intensity and commercial to a full commercial land use on a 2.69 acre parcel on State Road 44 at New Smyrna Beach. The applicant intends to remove an existing non-conforming fuel depot and replace with a 3-floor indoor storage facility. It does have the companion rezoning and special exception. 80% of the site, about 2.16 acres, is currently commercial, and this amendment is simply to change the remaining 0.53 acres. The site is subject to a thoroughfare overlay standards, and the State Road 44 corridor is primarily commercial, though north and east of the property are single-family residential. The parcel is within the New Smyrna Beach Interlocal Service Boundary Agreement area and the city's utility service area. The city did provide comments during staff review, and they found They're not able to provide sanitary sewer, so on-site treatment is required. So currently, about 0.53 acres is the UMI future land use and can develop at a 50% floor area ratio, which is approximately 11,500 square feet. The applicant is proposing a structure of 62,182 square feet, which is incompatible with the UMI. In addition, the applicant is proposing rezoning to B4 with a special exception for the use, which is also incompatible with the UMI and requires the commercial future land use. If the entire parcel was commercial, it can be developed at a 55% floor area ratio, which yields a 64,447 square foot structure, which is compatible. However, the future land use change is not compatible with comp plan policies. There are 3 policies, 1.1.1.1, which requires concurrency services available, 1.1.1.3, which require that the change shall not result in a reduction of level of service below the comprehensive plan standards, and also 1.1.3.5, which requires the future land use change must discourage urban sprawl. So the urban sprawl criteria, we have 8 criteria total. Every future land use change must meet 4. Staff found that this change only meets 2 of the 8 and fails 6. The 6 that it does not meet are cost-effective provision or extension of public infrastructure and services. It must promote walkable and connected communities, promote conservation of water and energy, preserve agriculture area and activities, preserve open space and natural lands and provides public open space, and provide uses, densities, and intensities of use in urban form that would remediate urban sprawl. In addition, we also assess the traffic impacts. So the existing trip generation of the site is 328 daily trips. The proposed use is estimated to be 94 daily trips and 10 p.m. peak hour. However, it's important to note the future land use change allows for all commercial uses and not just self-storage mini warehouses. The maximum trip gen on site of the most intense use is 6,089 daily trips and 582 p.m. peak hour. For this proposed use, county traffic engineering did not object. And this is a little bit of a complicated detail, but based on the percentage of what is currently commercial, which is 80%, and what is being changed, the land use change would result in 1,200 of the 6,089 daily trips. So this site, if fully commercial, has the potential to result in adverse impacts to State Road 44 if it's ever developed as a more intense use. So that's kind of the argument here, is it's being proposed as self-storage now, but it may not be that forever. And if that ever becomes more intense use, there will be impacts to State Road 44, and FDOT will be required to make improvements. So overall, staff recommends forwarding to County Council a recommendation of denial. And it's based on its inability to meet criteria C, consistency with the comprehensive plan, criteria D, urban sprawl criteria, and criteria E, impacts on concurrency monitored facilities. And staff is available for comment or question.
Mr. Felder.
Thank you. So I'm familiar with this location right now. It does not have sanitary sewer water services, or do we know if it does on the other parcels, or we're not caring about that, right?
So this site is currently not on the city's sewer, and they're unable to provide services.
So if this were to be changed over and it were to become commercial property, it would need some sort of sanitary services for people coming to the building, and it cannot be provided?
They would have to go at the septic.
They would have to do a septic and a well
Yes.
in an area that floods.
They may have, do they have potable water available?
I think it does have potable water, just not sanitary sewer.
Okay, so it's got, they have a well already on site, but no sewer.
I believe the letter from the Utilities Commission says that they have availability for the potable water, but not for the sanitary sewer.
Okay, so the city would provide water, but not for the sewer. Okay. That's all my questions for now, thank you.
Mr. Young, were you, anyone else? You made mention that the city had commented. Did they have any other comments other than just saying that they couldn't provide services about this use for this property?
So this will come up in the other cases, but they do mention that the city, that the site is in the city's corridor overlay zone, and it's subject to those requirements.
Okay. But they didn't have any negative comments towards the project?
No.
Okay. What about, was there any input from the community around it? I know it appears to be quite a few residential uses in that area.
Not to my knowledge.
No. Thank you. Mr. Felder?
And I'm sorry, because I thought I clarified this, but I didn't. I don't think I made it clear. The two parcels that are part of this, the 80% ownership, are already zoned commercial. Was that done through a change? Do we know how that was done? Was that done through a comprehensive plan amendment as well, or were those already commercial and then this one just happened to be UMI? I'm just wondering how we got to a small, because we're really only talking about the small sliver of orange between the two reds here of this comprehensive plan amendment. I'm just wondering how the others got changed. Curiosity.
So this is an old, non-conforming use that has been in place for a very long time.
Right.
Our comp plan did not come into existence till the 90s. So as they went through, they tried to place things appropriately at that time.
So this Lynch Oil or whatever was considered commercial, and this other piece of property was not part of that when they did that. And I assume they've acquired that property throughout or something, and when that property was done at the same time that Lynch was, it was UMI. Thank you.
Mr. Costa, did you have a question?
I'll wait for the applicant.
All right. Would the applicant please come forward? If you would give your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, I'm Philip Hollis. I'm a professional engineer and a development consultant. My address is 263 Minorca Beach Way, New Smyrna Beach, and we're here representing the Exum family this morning. The Exum family has owned the two parcels that were mentioned previously for 65 years and are long-term. This is a third generation family in Volusia County and in this area that's owned this property. The property's been operated for, as been indicated by staff, on the two existing commercial parcels for a very long time. In fact, I think the Exum family, I have the Exum family actually here today have owned it for 65 years. So it's a very old non-conforming use. Certainly this is not in an urban sprawl area. This is the gateway intensive commercial corridor for the city of New Smyrna Beach. And this shows the county zoning, and when you add the city to it, it's very clear. I don't know if any of y'all have been to the site and are familiar with the eyesore that I take on community projects that I believe have a significant potential for improvement to the face and the landscape of communities, because I'm retired otherwise and have better things to do. But this cause brings me here today, not just because the Exum family wants to continue to derive income for generations to come from the property that they've owned for 65 years, but also because it is the absolute best thing we can possibly do for the community. If you remove the ability for multiple trucks hauling 100,000 gallons per day of fuel in and out of a site, making entries on multiple driveway access points on 44 in this area, and can remove that eyesore and that use and put up a state-of-the-art self-storage facility which has the lowest trip generation known to man other than a nursing home, which would be kind of inappropriate probably in that area. So somebody picked up before and made a very good point in that the small half-acre parcel that was previously a residential parcel is a new addition to the Exum family's holdings. The reason for that addition is that the Cathy family, y'all know Chick-fil-A, they're also another one of those excellent families, long-term, residents of New Smyrna Beach in Volusia County. They owned this property, and it was an investment by their WindShape summer camp and scholarship program of Chick-fil-A. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that program, but for, as an investment for, to benefit that very great cause of summer camps and scholarships for youth. And when the overlay ordinance came in, it took, what happens is it takes 50 feet for a landscape buffer off the front of a piece of property. And then because we're in a separate utility company, a utility area, then New Smyrna Beach Utilities wants a 25-foot utility easement so that they can extend their water that's already there and their sewer systems someday whenever they get around to it. So you take 75 feet off of the front of this property. What happened is that they ruined Chick-fil-A's investment for their kids. So the Exum family stepped up, paid more than they should have because it's going for a good cause, and added this property to their property, and the problem was solved, so to speak. The problem exists, though, is that the beautiful thing about adding that property to their property is that it provides that property access through a future signalized intersection of Corbin Park, and allows them to eliminate all the other outbound driveways for even their very low use, traffic use, which is self-storage. The problem is they can't use that piece of property because the comprehensive plan prohibits you from accessing through a residential land use property to get access to a commercial property. So they cannot access the Corbin Park Road future signalized intersection and participate in that unless this property is combined and has the same future land use. About a half acre of unusable property sandwiched between existing commercial property that is only appropriate for it to be commercial. And I'd be happy to address the sewer question that was raised as well. We've been 2 years working with New Smyrna Beach Utilities and the City of New Smyrna Beach through this corridor overlay program. For decades, the overlay ordinance, the very reason for the overlay to be created is so that the city would, could, should, and promised to provide urban level of services along this corridor, right? New Smyrna Beach Utilities has failed for decades to provide utility services to the extent that recently, I believe the permitting authority of New Smyrna Beach has been removed and brought back to Volusia County by the county commission. Am I right about that? What's going on there? Yeah, I read that was happening, was an ordinance that was in process, but anyway, probably rightfully so, but the reason that we're here is because we were unable to get sewer service from the city. We offered them a lift station site on our property as a gift, and we offered other solutions, and they were not able to do it. So we're here, which is our right, asking to be permitted through the county, and we're asking your consideration for the approval of a half acre of single-family residential property to be land use changed to commercial.
Mr. Hollis,
Yes.
let us do something administratively. Give us just a second.
Yeah.
Ms. Smith?
Mr. Chair, if it pleases the commission, we can read the other two items into the record, and then they can hear the entire project, and then they can vote on each item individually afterwards. And then that will allow them to hear the improvements that you're making to the property.
Thank you. Ms. Shelley, would you read the other two in, please?
Yes, sir. Case number Z 22-145, rezoning from the urban single-family residential R4 and planned unit development with a business subclassification BPUD zoning classification to the general commercial B4 zoning classification. And case number S22-146, a special exception for a mini warehouse on general commercial B4 zoned property.
Mr. Hollis, if you don't mind, we're going to let Steve do the staff report on them, and
Yeah, let
then
me
you can
step
come
back.
back up and speak.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the rezoning for this property from R4 and BPD to B4 is being requested to replace the fuel depot with the indoor self-storage. Rezoning is contingent on CPA approval, and B4 was selected because the proposed use of the mini warehouse is a permitted special exception under that zoning class. Overall, State Road 44 corridor is primarily commercial, as all properties west of the site are commercial PUD or commercial uses. The subject site is in the city's ISBA, and the city provided comments that it's within the corridor overlay zone. It would need to comply with dimensional standards and landscape buffers. The site meets all design standards except for lot width. The city requires 300 feet, and this was approximately, I believe, 240 or 250. Therefore, it was not consistent with that standard. In addition, the site would need to meet the county's thoroughfare overlay standards, non-residential design standards, and the city's gateway standards as well. Staff found the rezoning is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, as it does not satisfy the urban sprawl criteria. And while the proposed use is a reduction of trips, the change in future land use and rezoning increase entitlements and has potential to result in adverse impacts to State Road 44 if ever developed with a more intense use. The applicant is attempting to remove a non-conforming use and resolve issues with the CPA rezoning and special exception. Staff recommends forwarding to County Council with recommendation of denial because of the inconsistency with the comprehensive plan. If the PLDRC finds evidence to approve, staff recommends that it's contingent upon the CPA approval. And the special exception, want to make a quick note. There were revisions to pages 1 and 2 provided by email to remove the word denial and replace with approval on page 1. That was an oversight. Also to remove the word amendment. In addition, to fix the square footage of the proposed building that was left in from before I spoke with the applicant and clarified. So the applicant is requesting a special exception to build a mini warehouse on the 2.69 acre property. The request is contingent on the CPA and the rezoning. The main building will be 3 floors, approximately 62,182 square feet, with 600 interior storage unit spaces. The office hours are 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Saturday, and the customer access hours are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday. So staff found the request was consistent with all mini warehouse and special exception criteria. There's adequate parking. There's 30 feet of space along each side for fire access. The landscape buffer did meet the thoroughfare overlay and city COZ standards. Overall, for the special exception, staff recommends forwarding to the County Council for approval as all criteria are satisfied with conditions. This approval is contingent on approval of companion cases CPA 22010 and Z 22145 by the County Council. Prior to commencement of any site work to redevelop the property, a conceptual site plan and final site plan shall be prepared and submitted for review and approval in the manner required by the Land Development Code. Hours of operation will be limited to Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Any proposed expansion shall require the approval of a new special exception. And the special exception must meet the City of New Smyrna Beach corridor overlay zone standards, county thoroughfare overlay standards, county non-residential design standards, and also the county traffic engineer shall determine any proportionate share contribution for future traffic impacts. The CTE reserves the right to request a traffic impact assessment during the site plan process. and I'm available for comments or questions.
Any questions, Mr. Felder?
So the commercial part, the original part that was non-conforming right now, that is zoned commercial.
Yes.
And in its current, without the addition of the other parcel, could that parcel be developed as a B4 with the B4 zoning classification? In its current, or would they have to go through the same rezoning to go from commercial to B4? Or, like, I don't know what the commercial
So
zoning.
the commercial zoning, or commercial land use does allow the B4.
So if we were not talking about this small sliver parcel, they could take this B4, apply for the special exception.
Yes.
Correct, in that side. So the only reason you're finding, and I'm combining all these right now, we're finding this inconsistent with the plan because of that tiny little sliver piece. Is that correct from staff?
That's correct.
And that tiny little sliver piece is on both sides commercial land, even though on one side there is residential, but the commercial side on 3 sides is the 44 with commercial across the street, south or east and west of the property all have commercial.
East is primarily residential. There's a convenience store on a corner, but most of it, north and east, is residential.
Oh, yeah, east is resident, that's right, yeah, I know what you, yeah, up to Linda Drive, yes. So that eastern and northern part is the residential, the western and southern part is the commercial. Okay. But that commercial land is commercial because that's what it's been for 30 years. That's but the nonconformity is the use right now. The Lynch oil thing is the nonconformity, not the fact that it's a business. That helps me.
And one more.
Yeah, I'm
One
sorry.
more thing to add to it. It's not zoned commercial. It's currently a BPUD. However, they did not follow through with the site plan process, so it is just continuing to operate as a non-conforming use. So anything that goes onto that property would either need to get a new BPUD or be rezoned to a commercial use.
But it wouldn't be unheard of for it to continue to be commercial since it's been commercial for that long.
That's correct.
I mean, it's not like it's changing a house to a commercial or something. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Nope. Thank you. Would the applicant come back, please? Okay, wherever you want to start.
Now, I really appreciate the excellent questions that have been asked, by the way, which you're helping me a lot. I appreciate that very much. And also appreciate the staff and their thorough analysis of this project and what is proposed, and the insight that's presented in that staff review is very much appreciated. Really, on the rezoning itself, we ran this site plan through a staff review process as recommended by staff, and they gave us a full, thorough analysis and everything. And in that final report, they gave us the option of doing a BPUD to bring the rest of the property to a BPUD, or to go to the B4 conventional rezoning. And as we looked at that, we said, yeah, we can probably get a little more height, we can probably get a little less setbacks, we can probably get a little more square footage if we went the BPUD, and so forth. And the question is always asked, well, do we need another storage unit? Well, my self-storage unit was flooded during the hurricanes. And I had to go through that horrific experience. And I just have to say, I'm over on Edgewater Drive in Volusia County, not far from here, and a lot of other people that had air-conditioned storage units at ground level in that facility flooded, and they're probably moving, and there is the demand. Our report says that there is a demand for 60 to 70,000 square foot of this very special kind of self-storage. Air-conditioned, all inside access, the kind of place that you'd feel comfortable with your wife or your daughter going and putting the Thanksgiving stuff back and getting the Christmas stuff, if you know what I mean. Those 24/7 monitored security and so forth. That's what we're talking about. A very low trip generator, but a very safe and quality place that is very definitely needed within Volusia County in this area primarily. And they mentioned that we had a little sliver of floodplain on the property. And that little area, as it transitions to the neighbor to the east, is very small, and we will have that mitigated, and the building will be raised a couple of feet approximately above the 100-year floodplain. Just for the record, that's what's required. So we would appreciate your consideration of the zoning to have the entire property under one zoning of the B4, and we can do everything we need to do on the property within the we don't have to do a BPUD and ask for a lot more or anything. We're okay with the traditional use. And I'll stop for any questions and on the rezoning.
I'm gonna start on this end for a change. Mr. Costa.
Yes, Mr. Hollis. So I'm very familiar with this property. I drive it probably a couple times a week. Tractor Supply obviously is across the street, so. Anything is an improvement over what's there now. A dog kennel would be an improvement over what's there now.
It is the most intensive use that one could possibly imagine that could be
yes.
put on a commercial property.
Absolutely, and and the few times that I have gone by there, say on a weekday at between 12 and 2, the amount of trucks coming and going out of that site onto that arterial highway is just horrendous.
What scares me the most is not the ones pulling out that are heavy loaded, that are going slow, right?
It's the ones flying in.
It's the ones coming in that are tanks full of fumes that are explosive.
Yes.
That have to make those turns
Yes.
to get a signalized intersection there is going to help.
What you put on there, it's from a business perspective, is really of no concern to me. I mean, that's a business call. One of the questions I have, two questions I'll get to. The first one is, have you done your phase 1 yet on that site?
The family has been in a process for a decade, and particularly in the last 5 years, of a very detailed step-by-step process of actually doing a thorough cleanup.
Cleanup, okay.
And the very last little remnant thing is some gas vapors that are actually in the soil, and they're in the vapor recovery process. It's a state identified and funded cleanup site.
Okay, perfect.
And they got it, once we get it all cleaned up and in a condition that we can move soil and make a construction change, the family wants to change the use to a better use.
And that's why I bring that up, because it hasn't been brought up, and I know that the site has been historically oil and gas, and so I assumed that we have issues on the site that need to be cleaned up, so this is a plus right there, a win-win. My other question was, did I understand you right? Did you try to go through the city of New Smyrna Beach first to get this permitted?
What the overlay says is that you go to the city first. The overlay ordinance, and you try to get them to develop, to allow you to develop within the city. We had numerous meetings while Brian Fields was there. He's no longer there, but Brian's a dear friend, a great American, and did his absolute best to help us through that process. But we could not get the Utility Commission New Smyrna Beach to provide sewer service, and in the city of New Smyrna Beach, you can't develop unless you have sewer service. And the county, I already have approval from the county health department with specific criteria and everything for the on-site temporary, by the way. We're making it temporary because we'll stub out in the design the sewer so that we can connect to the sewer once it is available. But in talking with Kenny Ho and the other people at Utility Commission New Smyrna Beach, they even had Tractor Supply limited in what they could build, and they had to build a force main long ways to the south to a dry hole that they don't have even a lift station that can pump the sewer from there. It was, and on that, after that whole horrific thing, the city said, well, this is the last time they realized they're putting themselves in a hole where they actually had to do something to provide utility services to meet the intent of the corridor overlay. That's the very reason that the corridor overlay was created, is that they were supposed to be providing utilities and these services to these facilities on this major roadway in this commercial area.
So if and when you get all your approvals and you either decide to build or not to build on the site, are you going to be required to annex into the city of New Smyrna Beach, or will this property stay within county? You may not know the answer to that question. I certainly don't know.
I don't believe we have to annex, but
Okay.
we're not opposed to annexation if that's what everybody wants us to do.
Okay.
I mean, that, you know,
All right, thank you.
yeah,
Mr.
we're okay in the county. Let me just say that.
Mr. Hollis, let's go back and revisit, if you will, phase one. I would think that you probably could just hopped over phase one and go straight to phase two if you've been running a fuel depot there for 65 years. No need in running a phase one. We already know there's probably problems. But
Yes,
if
sir.
you would,
We have a
give just a brief explanation of what you mean by phase one for those in the listening public that might not know what we're talking about, just so everybody's got a clear understanding of what phase one, phase two might mean.
Right. Phase one is initial environmental site assessment by generally a geotechnical or environmental professional that has very certain criteria by the American Society of Testing Materials that you have to go through a detailed title search, another environmental lien search, and all kinds of things to determine whether there's a potential for environmental contamination on a particular site. If it's already, as you said, if it's already an operating fuel terminal facility, it's already on DEP's watch list. It already has DEP permits. It already has monitoring wells and has gone through that process. Phase two is where you actually drill the soil, test the groundwater, test the soil, and determine what those specific contaminants are that need to be mitigated. Beyond that, then there are a number of programs. You've heard of brownfield and other names that have been mentioned. They're state designated programs which have a priority by the state of which are the worst sites that really need to be cleaned up and monitored, and they're given priority in funding, and they're given priority in getting that work done. This is a priority site. This has been for a long time. It is in the final stage right now of the actual vapor recovery, which is the last vapor from in the upper soil profile. Is the groundwater clean? We're just working on the vapor in the upper profile, and it's nearing completion of that process. So we really are very soon going to be to a point to where we can now proceed, because you don't want to disturb the soil or do anything until you have the contamination totally removed, and you're not creating a hazard or anything. But we're very near that process, and it is time to get our annexation. Our rezoning, future land use amendment, and special exception.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Sixman, did you have something? No? Mr. Fellow.
We were moving down.
Go ahead.
I don't have anything really except what I was going to, talk about or ask you about was the brownfield, but you've addressed those issues. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Young?
I'll second Costa. I'm familiar with the area, having worked with the Utilities Commission. I was in the engineering department with them. I'm a little surprised at them, but I know management there. And I think it's a good area. It needs to be developed. It's been a sore point for a long time. I have relatives down there, so I'm anxious to see you do it myself.
Kenny Ho is trying really hard to get a program together, and they're stuck in a quagmire of priorities of administration.
Yeah, the Utilities Commission is.
But we don't want to beat those guys up. They don't. Mr. Feller?
Yeah, I'm glad you started with the smart people down there, and then you get to the not so
you're the
smart
one
people
that
towards
nailed
the
it.
end.
No.
At the end of the day, what I'm looking at is I drive by this as well too. My biggest concern, and it's my only concern beachside, because I'm a beachside resident now, sold, but now I'm still part of this, is flooding. That area floods like mad over there. People are living in their RVs out in front, and we're having to extend it 6 months and all that. So as I look at this, my only concern is you're going to put a septic tank, a septic system on a flooding area, and we're also probably going to pave more than we probably should, which is going to do for land runoff, which is typically going to run over to the residential side than it is to the commercial side. All of that being said, this is a commercial property. It's been a commercial property forever. 90% of this paperwork would go away if it weren't for that tiny little sliver right there. It would all go away, and then like Mr. Costa said, what you do with your commercial land is not mine. I can tell you why I'm not in favor of mini storage units, but I have to also tell you why that if you could do it here and you needed a special exemption, I could sit here and say, makes pretty darn good sense here. So as I look at all of this, the only thing I can say is, you mentioned two things, and I'm going to bring these up specifically, is the need for it. I'm sure there are plenty of studies and all of that stuff. I really think we need a Chick-fil-A there. Sorry, you know, I mean, I say that with a bit of a jest. Mini storage units are huge revenue generators, but they are not job generators. They are not things that bring a lot of people in. They bring in a few low-paid employees, and there's a lot of it. I say that, that's my own personal take on it. I don't know that they're the best thing as the gateway into New Smyrna Beach. Is that what we have? But being that all we do is build 6,000 square foot houses on 50 by 100 lots, I don't know where you put everything. There's too much. It's a dichotomy that we have to figure out. You said the flooding is what you're concerned about. How are we addressing the flooding? That's the biggest thing. I mean, I know we're probably too early. I look at the plan, and it's impervious right now. It's mostly dirt except for the buildings. That's going to go to mostly concrete, correct?
It's recycled concrete and shell surface, yeah.
It is, so.
It's
but I mean,
fairly impervious right now.
It is?
Yeah.
I mean,
It just runs dirty water off instead of cleaner.
I'm gonna have to take you on that because again, I will say, anything other than a fuel depot is better.
Yes.
But these are where my concerns lie for it, is that you're gonna have to put a septic system in what was dirty soil and all of that other stuff, and that's all gonna go back into our drinking water. I don't know how you fix that or don't, but it's really not my problem, so to speak. It's my problem to sit here and look at, can you do this with
Well, I'd like to address those, if I may. First of all, those of us who have been here for a long time and know the history of the State Road 44 when it was built and the constraint across Turnbull Creek. And I have so many friends that live south of 44 in the Turnbull Creek Basin, and all I can say is I cried and my heart went out to my friends, okay, within that area. And my self-storage unit I was talking about backs up to that same area, and I got flooded. So, and it wasn't supposed to flood. We're above the 100-year flood back there, but that's a special basin in a special situation. Dave Chappelle, the drainage engineer for DOT, is a dear friend and a former employee of mine at Hollis Engineering. And he and I have talked about this at length for a long time. We've actually already figured out the drainage system on 44 and how we help each other, so to speak, with the drainage on 44 as far as this project goes. At the same time, we were talking to Tommy about the access and how excited we all were about the signalized, intersection. This little sliver causes us a lot of trouble, but it does a lot of benefits for the community in funneling that traffic through to the signal. We will elevate the building. Nobody wants a self-storage facility to be somewhere where it will flood. So we will elevate above the floodplain, the storage facility itself, but we'll also elevate the septic tank drain field temporarily. It'll be elevated in an elevated area. We have, because we only have such a small square footage, we way exceed the green space requirement and impervious area requirements for the site. And we have plenty of room for stormwater retention.
Mr. Hollis, all of those things will be dealt with in site plan, correct?
Yes, sir, you're right, I'm sorry.
So if you're finished, we're going to close the public hearing. If you've told us everything that we need to know that's pertinent to this case.
I want to honor your time, and I appreciate your time, and I would greatly appreciate your consideration in approving the comprehensive plan amendment, small scale comp plan amendment, and the rezoning, and particularly the conditional use, which puts very specific conditions on this rezoning. That is a huge help to the concerns that we've discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If anyone in the public would like to speak, we'll give you an opportunity to come back to rebut whatever.
Yes.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this case? If not, we're going to close the public hearing to case CPA 22010, Z 22145, and S 22146. The public hearing will be closed. We'll deal with each one of these in a separate move, is there any conversation from the commission or motion?
I'll
on
make a
CP
motion.
On CPA 22010.
Yeah.
Mr. Young.
Yeah, I make a motion that we send this to the city commission, or the county commission with a recommendation of, yeah, right, make a recommendation of approval of CPA 22-010.
Is there a second?
I will second.
It's been moved by Mr. Young, second by Mr. Costa, that we forward to, we find it consistent with the comprehensive plan and forward the application of CPA 22010 to the county council with the recommendation of approval. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Z22-145, is there a motion or discussion?
Oh, okay. I'll make a motion that we approve Z22-145 and send it to the city commission.
How about the county commission?
County commission, I'm sorry. Got that city commission thinking in my head.
It's been moved by Mr. Young, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Young, second by Mr. Sigma, that we forward the zoning application for case Z22-145 to the county council with the recommendation of approval. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. S22-146, is there a motion?
I'll make that motion again then, that we submit this to the county council with the recommendation of approval, with the six conditions from staff.
It's been moved by Mr. Young, second by Mr. Sixma, to forward special exception S22-146 to the county council with the for final action with the recommendation of approval, including the 6 staff recommended conditions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me.
Passes.
Nope. I didn't feel like we gave it the discussion. We haven't talked about it, so I say no.
It has been a 5-1 vote, Mr. Feller, in opposition. Ms. Shelley, may we have the next case, please?
Yes, sir. Case number V-23-017, variances to the minimum yard requirements on urban single-family R3 zoned property.
Ms. Smith, is this you?
This is a request for a single-family home on a canal. The applicant's seeking 2 variances. The first variance is for a proposed screen enclosure with a roof over an existing pool. The pool was built in 2001 under the old waterfront regulations. We updated our regulations to reduce the waterfront yard, and now the new owner would like to put a screen room over the pool. We did find that it fails to meet one criteria because it is the applicant who is responsible for the action. So we do have to recommend denial, but if you recommend approval, we offer a condition for that. The second variance is for an existing shed which was put on site by the previous owner. It's been there since at least 2012 with no complaints. It holds pool and electrical equipment. It encroaches 2.5 feet into the east yard and 17 feet into the waterfront yard. We found that this does fail 3 of the 5 criteria. The new owner does want to keep it in place because of the equipment that it's storing. I should note that our environmental permitting team does not support this variance because they feel like it's too close to the water and it does not meet avoidance and minimization criteria for wetlands. If you do choose to approve it, we recommend the conditions to get a building permit within 60 days. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff?
I do.
Mr. Feller.
So this is a screen enclosure over an existing pool. The pool does not need pools, it's changed. Now they just want to screen it in.
That's correct.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward?
Hello again. For the record, Nika Hosseini with the firm of Cobb Cole, 231 North Woodland Boulevard in DeLand. So I started with the difficult one, made you guys kind of work for that one, and now I'm here with a lot simpler of an ask. And I think I heard Mr. Costa mention that he does want dog kennels everywhere at this point. So happy to work with you on that. So just for the record, we do have our clients here. They're happy to answer any questions that you may have. This is really simple. Regarding the shed, that's been there. It's supposed to support all the pool equipment, and the pool has been there since 2001. So they couldn't find the permit all the way back then. They don't know whether it exists or not. And so all our clients want is to keep it there in order to protect all of the items that's within it. And regarding the screen, this is essentially what variances were created for. You have a pool that was permitted properly, a deck that was permitted properly, and just last year, the county changed their waterfront yard setbacks. And so now you wouldn't be able to put a screen properly over the pool that was permitted properly. So all we're asking for is to be able to cover the area that currently exists that was permitted properly, and to keep an existing shed that was not put in place by the property owners, and keep it in its exact location and not move it at all. So those are our couple of requests. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Young?
Yeah, what kind of equipment is in that building? I'm wondering why environmental is concerned about it.
They're only concerned because, technically speaking, when that shed was put in place, it didn't meet the setback requirements, and that's why we're requesting a variance. They're not concerned about what's in the shed, they're concerned about the location of the shed.
They're concerned about the wetland, that it does not meet our criteria.
Okay, but there's no environmentally dangerous
No, sir.
equipment in
This
it.
is
That's what I
specific to the
wanted to know.
location near the water.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? One question about the shed. Do we know whether it's on a concrete pad?
No, it's on a concrete pad.
Okay. Is there anywhere else that shed could be just picked up and moved so that it's not affecting the?
So I think it's possible. The way I see it, and my degree is in environmental science as well, is that so it's existing right now, and so the impact is already done. So the potential impact that it may have had is done. It's existing since 2001. Likely, it's been existing. So if you pick it up and you move it, you're impacting another area that has not been impacted yet. And so that's my only issue with potentially picking it up and moving it, if that's even feasible, is that all you're doing is transferring an impact, but the impact is already, it's been existing for at least a decade.
Well, I mean, but if you're moving it outside of the environmental sensitive area, then
right,
we're not really affecting the environmental.
Environmentally,
thing
no,
that we're
but just
trying
in
to
terms of
protect.
impact to the property is all I mean.
Yeah, so that's where I was trying to go with
Mr.
that.
Chair, is there any piping or anything that comes from the well, from the pool? In other words, there's piping and all that would have to be dug up and relocated as well? Okay, that's what I want to know. If it was just equipment sitting there,
yeah,
it would
like
it would be
Shelley's-
different, but there is piping and wiring and all that have to be
Protecting
relocated.
that, yes. The shed is kind of a shelter
Yeah,
for this.
yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so the shed is got wiring and all of these type of things
It would be,
going to it?
it would be
Just
very
for the
difficult to
lights?
move it.
It's the pool pump.
Okay, Mr. Costa.
I just want to clarify something, and maybe I misunderstood. This shed that we're talking about, variance
Yes.
number 3, that was previously existing to these owners?
Correct,
So it was already there when these owners came in?
correct.
They just utilized the space to put their pool equipment when they built the pool?
The pool equipment was also there as
Oh,
well.
the pool was
Yes.
also from a previous owner as
Yes.
well? So the only thing that these owners are doing is putting a screen room, and now we're
Exactly.
basically fixing everything from the previous owner?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Mr. Feller?
Just a question to staff at that point. When they build the pool, if they get a permit, all of their equipment for that pool is on that permit as well too, and I assume that, and I'm gonna make the assumption that those equipment for the pool didn't have the same setbacks as the house, and so that's why they were put there? Like, I mean, I assume that they got the pool permitted and that equipment was there.
Correct. Everything that has to do with the pool has been taken care of. What the concern is that that it's close to the wetlands.
Right.
If they come in and this shed stays and gets permitted, they'll be required to get a wetland alteration permit to address any impacts that it has caused.
And as
So the
far-
impacts will be addressed.
Perfect. And so then as far as the
Thank you.
actual shed itself goes, that was done pre this owner, everything was there, it was all
Yes.
there, so, yeah, okay.
And Mr. Feller, I get what you're referring to regarding the equipment.
Permitted.
Yep, exactly.
But, you know, I only bring that up because regardless if it was done by who, if environmental has a concern, I think it's important for us to at least address it, talk about it before we make any decisions, so that's why I bring it up.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Of course.
Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this case? If not, we're gonna close the public hearing and move for commission comments or a motion.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr.
Please,
Chair.
sir.
I make a motion that case V-23-017, that we approve variants 1, 2, and 3 with the staff recommended conditions, which I
Second.
believe there are 3. Yep.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Costa, second by Ms. Shelley, that V 23017 be approved, variances 1, 2, and 3 with staff recommended conditions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you all for your time today. I appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
Ms. Shelley, may we have the next case, please?
Yes, sir. Case number V-23-019, a variance to the minimum yard requirements on urban single-family R4 zoned property.
Ms. Smith, is this you again?
Yes, sir. So this is a corner lot. It has 2 front yards. One of the front yards is an unopened right-of-way. However, both front yards are subject to a 25-foot setback. The applicant would like to build a 12 by 24 shed in the northwest corner of the property. So that's on one side yard and on the unopened right-of-way. When we do the analysis, it does fail to meet 3 of the 5 criteria because it could be located in another location. But should you choose to approve, we do offer 1 condition, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for staff? If not, would the applicant please come forward? You give your
Good
name
morning
and
and
address, please.
Merry
sir.
Christmas to the commission. My name is Doug Batalico, and I live at 222 Pecan Street in DeLand.
Thank you.
Is my home.
Do you have something that you'd like us to know?
Well, I understand that it would be impractical for engineering to come around and look at every piece of property regarding requests that come across their desks. But if you were to visit this yard, you would see that this is the only place where I can adequately place this shed without having to tear up landscaping or cut down trees. Both of these things I really do not want to do. And also the fact that it's located on the same side of the street as my driveway. I've got a couple motorcycles in the storage unit over on 92 that are costing me $340 a month to keep there because I don't have adequate space at this house. My wife and I recently bought this and downsized. I'm retired, she's going to be retired. And I'm not sure whatever other criteria they feel that I did not meet, but I think if the setback on the Howery side where there will not be a road built is reduced where I can put this in there legally, I would like to do that.
Is that it? Any questions for Mr. Young?
Sorry today. I'm just curious, I'm looking at the aerial. I was real impressed, by the way, by your landscaping. Just make that comment. But is there any trees or something you'd have to remove in that location? Because I'm trying to figure it. I see it on the aerial, but it looks like there's a tree there. That's the only question I have.
I have some other photos if you'd like to look at them.
You're not removing a tree or anything?
No, that is the reason why I chose that spot.
Okay, thank you very much.
People that build and install the shed can just back up the driveway and swing around that part of the house and put it there. There's no other way to get anywhere else in the yard with the shed that is not going to require taking down my neighbor's privacy fence and coming through his yard, or cutting down trees, or tearing up landscaping.
Fantastic answer. Like I said, I like your landscaping.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Costa, you had a question?
I did, I was going to refer it to staff, though.
Sure.
Just want to clarify, this is a two front yard property,
Yes, sir.
and the section that we're talking about, if it was a side yard, would only be 8 foot as
Yes,
opposed
sir.
to 20. So technically, he's only asking for a 1 foot variance. If we were to look at it as side yard, which
If this was vacated and it was a side yard, that's correct.
okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this case?
Mr. Chair, I would just only add that, if the applicant got together with the neighbor to the north of the unopened right-of-way and vacated that portion, I do believe it kind of dead ends. They would get to the center line, and they wouldn't even need a variance to the side yard because you would have additional land, and the neighbor to the north would have additional land.
Right. Have you considered that?
The neighbors to the north are just now clearing that land. They are just in the process of clearing to build a house there. It was suggested to me after I applied for the easement adjustment to do the vacation, have the vacated easement there. And I was told that I would get part of it, and the other half basically would be gifted to the other people if
The other
took
property
action.
owner, right.
And personally, I would rather see it as a wooded buffer between myself and my neighbor. I would rather see it left as it is.
That's totally up to you to go down there, and if you don't request it, I don't know if anybody will ever look at it, so don't address it. If there's nothing else, we're gonna close the public hearing and look for comments from the commission or a motion.
Prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Case number V-23-019. Make a motion that we approve this variance with the one recommended staff condition.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Mr. Costa, second by everybody. Ms. Shelley, that we approve V-23-019 with staff recommended conditions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Ms. Shelley, may we have the next case, please?
Yes, sir. V-23-020, variance to the accessory dwelling unit regulations on rural residential RR and resource corridor RC zoned property.
Mr. Walter.
Good morning, Ben Walter, Planning and Development Services. This variance request is to allow an accessory dwelling unit's facade to be located in front of the rearmost point of the detached principal dwelling unit. This property is zoned RR and RC and is conforming to those requirements. It is 2.4 acres in area. The applicant applied for 4 permits: a replacement single-family residence, a shed, a cabana, and an accessory dwelling unit. All of the permits have been issued except for the accessory dwelling unit. The site plan shows the relative location of the accessory dwelling unit. That is, the only variance being requested is for that relative location. The applicant stated in their written petition that they've selected the location to avoid impacts to wetlands, some artesian wells, and mature trees on the property. And the PLDRC has previously requested a revision to this ordinance for lots greater than 1 acre in area to remove the relative location. Staff is currently working on that revision to the ordinance, and if passed, this project would not require a variance. On review, staff found that the request did fail to meet 3 of the 5 criteria, and we recommend denial. If the PLDRC finds sufficient evidence to approve, staff recommends one condition, that the variance be limited to the 33-foot by 31.7-foot accessory dwelling unit as shown on the variance site plan. And I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Feller?
Why the condition? Isn't there already a condition on ADUs to be a certain size? I understand that we're talking about the location, and if we didn't have that location issue, we wouldn't be talking about a size issue because that's already defined. Do we need that condition?
The condition is for the location. The size was just used to reference the site plan to make clear that that we're not going to revise the site plan and have a different sized unit.
I guess the discussion is, they are limited by the code. It's really is, do you want them to actually build that 33 by 31 foot ADU in the specified location?
I'm okay with them building the ADU in that specified location. I don't care what the size is as long as it meets what the code says, which is 50% of the principal dwelling, is that correct?
Up to 1,200.
Up to 1,200 square feet.
Currently.
I just don't.
I think if for this type of, that's actually subject to the change and discussion for the proposed ordinance, is for these large lots, remove the maximum size provision, keep it at 50%, and then remove the fact that they have to locate behind the rearmost point. So.
All right, I'm all in on that. I don't think we need the 33 by 31 in there. Thank you.
Any other questions? Would the applicant please come forward? If you would give us your name and address, please, for the record, sir.
Hi, good morning. My name is Adam Smith, and I own the property at 215 Stillbrook Trail in Enterprise, Florida, 32725. I've never done this before, so I printed up a bunch of things. Am I able to add this to the record and hand this to you guys?
You can give it to the staff over here to our left, please. And tell us anything that you would like us to know.
Yeah, I'd like for you to look at these pictures while I'm talking because it helps explain it a lot. If you guys all have them, I'm here requesting a variance for section 72-277 D2D, which states a detached accessory dwelling unit must be located so that its front facade is rearward of the rearmost point of the principal detached single-family dwelling unit. If you look at the first picture of the survey, the red line of the first image follows the plane of the rear of the home. The blue line illustrates the rearmost point of the home parallel to the rear property line. The ADU is on the right side of the survey and is outlined in green. The ADU faces to the rear of the property, so no matter which line you utilize, the front facade is rearward of the rearmost point of the principal detached single-family dwelling unit. If you please look at the next picture, you can see that the four corners of the ADU that is in red are all behind the rear of the single-family dwelling that is under construction. All front and side setbacks are all meeting or exceeding code requirements as well. Because of this, I believe that I meet the requirements of the code section in question and no variance is even required. However, staff has required that a variance and record be used to move forward. With that being said, I would like to present my case for the variance. If you please look back at the survey, you can see that the configuration of this property is unique and it is not a standard square-shaped lot. The whole property is angled to the left and the northernmost point of the property is almost a pie-shaped. This is also where the road entrance to the property is. In addition to the unique configuration, this property has existing wetlands and mature trees, as is evidenced in the final pictures I provided. In the staff report, it is suggested to locate the building further to the south, which would impact wetlands and require removal of mature trees and put the structure in a flood zone. While staff recommends pursuing wetland destruction and tree removal to avoid a variance, I feel that that would seriously detract from the character of the community and the property itself. I purchased this property because I love nature and the natural surroundings of Florida, and I do not want to destroy the natural environment that makes this area so wonderful. It is counter to my values to impact the wetlands for the construction of a building. I work with my engineer, architect, surveyor, and my environmental scientist to specifically design this property to avoid wetland impacts and also to avoid the need for a variance. The single-family dwelling unit has been permitted and is currently under construction right now. A permit application for the ADU has already been submitted and reviewed by county staff. Staff has indicated to me that when this variance is approved, the permit for the ADU is ready to be issued since they have already approved everything. I have discussed this variance with my neighbors and they have all said that they are in favor of it being approved. They have all thanked me for improving the property that has sat vacant and neglected for over 2 decades. Additionally, staff, as they informed me, as well as mentioned in the report, that there is a revision to the ADU requirements in the staff's code that is currently in process that would eliminate the need for a variance for this property in the first place. I respectfully request that the board either find that there is no variance that is required for this ADU that is being proposed, or that the Planning and Land Development Regulation Commission approve a variance to this section. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions you
Mr.
have.
Smith, just out of an observation, your first comment was you've never done this before. I don't know if I believe you. You did one heck of a job. Mr. Costa.
Yes. Couple questions. What is the square footage of the primary residence total?
The home is 3,200 square feet living, and
3,200
about
living?
4,800 square feet with.
Okay, so
garage.
you're under the 50% max cap for ADU. Correct? We're agreeing with that? The second thing is, we've had this conversation here on this commission before about ADUs as it applies to large acre lots. It doesn't always make sense to follow how the plan was written. In your particular case, as are in many, you're putting it in probably the highest and driest portion of your property. The further back you go on this rectangular piece of property, probably the wetter it gets.
Right.
And based on the pictures, I can see that as well. So with that being said, some of your comments were you don't have a requirement for a variance. Unfortunately, the way that the code is written right now, you do have to come through the process, as painful as it may be. And hopefully in the future, we can correct that so that others that come after you don't have to go through the same process, especially on large parcels like this. Thank you.
Mr. Felder?
Echo everything the same, but I do have a question because I like you a lot. We would be drinking. As it's read, because I'm a big stickler for as it's read in the code, he put the front facade behind the rear facade.
It's the rearmost point. So it's a point.
So-
Yeah. So you have to draw a tangent from the point. The tangent is parallel to the
Yeah.
back property line. So that results in the blue line, which results in the ADU being, it's because it's a weird property shape. And the angle of the primary dwelling unit is not square with the rear of the property.
But here's what I'm asking. I think the code, and maybe I'm wrong and you correct me, says that the front facade has to be behind that line, not the entire ADU. I'm picking at straws here, but is that correct? I look at this site plan and the front facade of his ADU is behind the rearmost point of his house.
Right, that's the code.
The front facade of the ADU is north of the blue line, right?
No,
That's-
it's not. South of the blue line. He says the front facade is facing this body of water. And the front of the house is away from the blue line, correct?
Correct.
So the rear of the house, the rearmost point of the house is the blue line, and the frontmost part of the ADU looks like it's entirely behind that blue line, if that's the backyard. Does that make sense or no?
Well, the driveway comes up to the ADU.
From the front, yeah. So you're
we
saying
can't
that no matter
actually
what he
dictate
calls
it.
the front, you're calling the other side the front?
Because he's going to kind of decorate that area, and we can't actually dictate what someone designs their ADU to be. Like, they could put in any type of decorations to look at that. So, without going to the building permit level, which the zoning doesn't look at in terms of your orientation of your ADU, we have to look at, okay, what is the purpose of it, which is the front facade facing the primary dwelling unit.
Front facade facing the front. I think you have a case in law, but thank you so much.
Let's just make a motion.
Any other comments, please? Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this case? We're going to close the public hearing and ask the commission for a motion or comment.
If you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Please do.
Case V-23-020. I recommend that I make a recommendation for approval of this variance with the one staff recommended condition.
Second.
It's been moved and by Mr. Costa, second by Ms. Shelley, that V-23-020 be approved with the staff recommended condition. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Sullivan,
Mr. Chair, before you read the next item in, I just wanted to let you know that this revision to the ADU ordinance will be coming to you in January, so you'll see it sooner than later.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Shelley, would you read the next case, please?
Yes, sir. Case number V-23-023, variance to the minimum yard requirements on urban single-family residential R4 zoned property.
Mr. Walter.
Good morning, Ben Walter, Planning and Development Services. This variance request is to reduce the front yard from 25 feet to 23.5 feet for an existing front porch addition. The subject property is zoned R4 and is conforming to the dimensional requirements. The property is a corner lot and has 2 front yards abutting both 3rd Street and Broadway Avenue. The minimum front yard setback in this zoning is 25 feet. The applicant received a notice of violation in May of this year for the construction of a front porch addition without a permit. The applicant responded by submitting an after-the-fact permit in August and was informed during the review of that permit that the addition did not meet the front yard setback. The support posts for the front porch addition were only 23.5 feet from the front property line. The roof of the front porch does meet the zoning requirements, as our code allows a 3.5-foot overhang into the front yard. It is only the support posts that do not meet the zoning requirements. This variance is required to obtain a building permit. The after-the-fact building permit the applicant has applied for. The applicant stated in the written petition that the porch was added to prevent a wet walkway and prevent possible slip and fall accidents. Excuse me. Staff does find that the approval of the variance would not be injurious to the area, and we have received 1 letter of support from a neighbor. During review, we did find that the variance request fails to meet 4 of the 5 criteria and recommend denial. If the PLDRC finds evidence to approve it, staff recommends 1 condition, that the variance be limited to the 6.5-foot by 14.9-foot front porch as shown on the variance site plan. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Would the applicant please come forward? Give us your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hello, I'm Sergey Gizim. I'm owner of this property and representing this case. So I'm a little bit completely disagree with the staff recommendation, because the structure in its existing condition, it's meet all the requirements except the support posts, which are made of solid concrete with the rebar. And only reason the support boards there in the first place, because they have to have a footers, and the front of the house has a existing concrete sidewalk, which basically made me to put the footers right after sidewalk, which sets them back like 6 feet 6 inches. So, and the concrete support posts, they're the part of the structure, and they are basically distribute all the weight of the addition. And as the staff recommends, the posts could be moved off the front property line. They cannot be moved because basically the post then will be right on a concrete sidewalk, which requires completely demolition in order to make a footers and reconstruct that concrete post. Also, if you move them and create overhang, which is legally you can have overhang, but just structurally, the way the weight of the roof is going to be distributed, the posts, they have a like unique location. They offer like most like desirable and most efficient way to distribute the weight of that roof structure. And I have also the pictures in case on a plan, on a site plan, so you can. Just worry about a little bit public speaking. So all I'm asking for you guys is just to let me squeeze those 18 inches of variance just for the posts so they can remain in the same location at the front of the house, which is not on anybody's way, as you can see on the picture. Because in order there's like impossible to move them because they're solid concrete with the rebar and with the footings as I follow the engineer spec. And so that's all it is.
All right, thank you. We will give you an opportunity to come back. We have one that would like to come forward. Is it Mr. Nar? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Nar. I live in 1194 Street. I'm their neighbor right behind them. I'm here to just support my neighbors and aesthetically, looking at their house, this new porch being put on is going to actually make the house look a lot better, a lot nicer. They said to move the posts back, the 18 inches, which will put it back on the sidewalk, but as far as aesthetically, it won't. It'll kind of look like the porch has an overbite. I guess, I don't know how else to describe it. The way it looks right now, the way he's going, the way he's moving forward with it, if he can continue the project, it's going to make the house and the neighborhood look a lot nicer. And that's all my input. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you want to come behind him and try to rebut what he just said. Are you good? We're going to close the public hearing and look for a motion or a comment from the commission.
I'll be glad to make a motion.
Please, ma'am.
I move that we approve case number V-23-023, variance to the minimum yard requirements on urban single-family residential R4 zoned property, subject to the staff condition.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Ms. Shelley, second by Mr. Costa, that V-23-023 be approved with the one staff recommended condition. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Shelley.
It's a nice neighbor to stay here all day.
Yes.
Yeah. Case number 0-22-136, ordinance number 2023-04, amending Chapter 72 of the Code of Ordinances to allow for mobile homes in certain zoning classifications.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Scott Ashley, Senior Zoning Manager, and with me is Rebecca Cottle, who's Planner 2 in the zoning activity. I'm going to give a brief overview of the ordinance, and then Rebecca is going to give you more detail on the analysis and the comp plan consistency issues. Just to let you know, what we're proposing is a change to the Chapter 72 of the County Code of Ordinances, specifically Article 1, which is definition, Article 2, the zoning ordinance. And this is to allow for changes in the definition of manufactured modular and mobile home dwelling, as well as expand the use of, or the allowance, I should better say, of mobile home in rural agricultural zoning classifications in the county. Right now, we have 8 rural agricultural type classifications. 2 of them allow mobile homes by right. The remaining do not. A couple of the zonings do allow mobile homes on a temporary basis with a special exception while building a home. Our proposal is to make it a by right to allow not only a single family standard and a modular, which is allowed today, but also add mobile home as an option for those zoning classifications we've listed in the report. How we got here, July 19th of this year, County Council was having a discussion about the affordable housing issues in the county, and one of the things they looked at is how to eliminate barriers to allowing and enabling more affordable housing in the county. And one option was looked at was the potential to make mobile homes more accessible and allowable in more areas of the county, and that's what we're looking at today. The zoning classifications we're looking at are the RC, or A2, A3, A4, which are the rural, resident resource corridor, and certainly the couple of the agricultural classifications. And we have 2 rural categories, which is the rural residential and the rural agricultural estate classifications. And again, our goal is to enable some flexibility in housing. We're limiting it to these areas because of one, it's already a use that's in the area. A lot of your agricultural areas have mobile homes interspersed and intermixed with modular or stick-built homes. So we're not looking to, we feel, add something that's not only you generally might see in a rural agricultural type environment. But we are just adding the use to it, and we're updating the definition, as we've indicated in the report, to address some modern, if you will, updated language and how those uses in homes are defined. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rebecca, and she can give you more detail on that.
Can we ask you a question, Mr. Cosmo?
Yes, sir.
Real quick, because I know there's people listening as well, and we have some folks that have some opposition here. Could you, in a nutshell, give us the basic differences between a modular home and a mobile home, please?
Well, the basics is going to be how they're constructed. They're both manufactured dwellings, but a modular is constructed in a factory in accordance with the regulations of the Florida Department of Business Professional Regulations. A mobile home is under HUD standards. And we are, also, we deem them in our statute and as a vehicle, because it's primarily on a chassis, it stays on a chassis, whereas a modular would be one that is typically put on a foundation.
So the county would be drawing a distinction between an RV, which is a mobile home, and a mobile home, which is on park.
We do not consider a RV a mobile home.
Okay.
We do define that separately in the ordinance as a mobile recreational shelter.
Okay.
And vehicle.
All right.
And they're outlined, fifth wheel, camper trailer, and things of that nature are separately defined.
Completely separately defined than a mobile home. I think that's some of the issues that have come up. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Young.
Are these tiny homes they're building where they're putting them on wheels? Is that considered a mobile home?
No, sir. Because
Okay.
they're all, the mobile homes that are going to go and are where they're allowed already have to meet the minimum size requirement that any standard home has to meet, and we're not changing that either. We're just adding the use to these classifications. They're not getting any special floor area consideration, setback consideration, anything like that. It's just the use and then definition of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
We received a couple of letters out of concern.
Yes.
Talking about values and how it's going to disturb the value of people's property by reducing it, by allowing mobile homes to just be placed anywhere out of right based on the zoning category. Do you have any feel for that, or what you're thinking? Just to
Well, I don't
put
want to
those folks at
speculate.
rest?
We certainly didn't do a market analysis or appraisal on it. We're at the direction of council. And maybe Rebecca can expound upon it a little bit more, but we have spoken to the property appraiser's office, and they don't distinguish when you're dealing with mobile home on a single parcel, as opposed to if it's a park situation, then they look at it as more of a tangible property. Now, if it's on an individual lot, just like any other residential structure, they're going to count that or assess that in the same manner, no matter what type of housing it is, on an individual lot.
All right, thank you. We were trying to help you out, Rebecca. We want to give him all the difficult questions, so you can come on up now.
Good morning, Rebecca Cottle, Planning and Development Services. I did want to reference the revision that was sent out on December 9th of 2022. The revision was sent after staff received additional information from the Florida Department of Emergency Management, and the purpose of the revision was just to resolve differences between the proposed amended definitions and the definitions in the floodplain management section of the ordinance. As Scott mentioned previously, this was a council directive on July 19th, 2022. And the purpose is to expand mobile homes into the RC classification, the agricultural classifications, the rural residential classification, and the rural agriculture classification. Staff does find this to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, as it does increase flexibility in housing type and in price. We have received 2 letters of opposition via email. One was from Mr. John Clary at 1595 South Ridgewood Avenue, and the other was from Mr. and Mrs. Thibodeau at 1710 Facio Road. Both of these properties are zoned rural residential. Are there any, excuse me, are there any questions?
Any questions for staff? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I only add that this is a policy-making decision, so if you would like to add or subtract zoning categories from the list of allowable uses, that's within the purview. I mean, this is, you're crafting policy of where to allow mobile homes by right, consistent with the staff report and all the criteria given.
Okay, Mr. Feller?
If we were at staff comments at this point.
Any staff comments? No. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to close the public hearing unless there's someone here that would like to speak to this case. Public hearing is closed. Commission comments or motion, please, Mr. Feller.
I looked through this and I saw this. I think this is an exact example of what a good revision to things are. I mean, these are large parcels. I think mobile homes are perfectly well in there. I understand they're covered by a different thing. But as I look through this, I think this is exactly, I don't know that it's necessarily dealing with affordable housing, but I think it's an excellent revision to the comprehensive plan. So I thought this was, I'm usually very critical of these ordinance changes. I just want to say this is excellent. Thank you.
Ms. Shelley?
I just have a point just of clarification with, I just wanted to ask staff a question just to have it on the record. Just because you buy the lot and put a mobile home on it doesn't mean when you sell the lot, a standard home could not go on that same piece of property.
Yes, in fact, mobile homes are kind of unique in that unless you attach it to the property, when you sell the lot, you're not guaranteed to own the mobile home if they don't go through an affidavit process and actually attach the mobile home to the property, and therefore it's considered real property. That doesn't affect the value of the property itself. It's just the mobile home is assessed and taxed as personal and private property rather than real property.
Thank you. I just wanted that on the record. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we are looking for a motion.
Make a motion in case 022-136 that we forward the ordinance. We find it, we recommend that we forward the ordinance consistent with the comprehensive plan to the county council with recommendation of approval.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and by Mr. Feller, second by Mr. Young, that 022-136 be forwarded to the county council for approval. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's see. Any other public comments? No.
Oh, just to clarify that last ordinance, it's going to the county council, I believe, the second meeting in February and not March. So, and it's going to be a 2-hearing process before county council. So I think the first meeting is scheduled for February, and then the second meeting is going to be sometime in March.
Thank you. Any more staff items?
No, sir.
Staff comments?
No, sir.
Commission comments?
I do. Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I just.
Mr. Young, hold on.
Mr.
Young, hold on a second. Let me. Okay, now, Mr. Young, please.
Okay, I just ask, was I asleep or did we not approve these minutes that were from the October case?
We approved them.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
You were asleep then.
I must have been asleep then. Thank you.
Mr. Feller.
I do have a few comments, and sorry, I know everybody wants to go, but I do have a few comments. First comment was something that happened today with the rural road and the paving and the fire services. I live down one of those rural roads too. House caught on fire, fire services got stuck. Couldn't get other fire services down the road once they got stuck, needed big train. So I think that the paving of the road, even though it's a private road, is important, especially if you're going to be doing a business. Just something I wanted to say, not necessarily in part with what they're talking about, but I think that that's a important point as we go through there. I did also want to say that I agree with Mr. Costa that I think the staff reports, it would be helpful if we had a little bit more detail on some of those. I want to not be super critical, I thought, but it would have been very helpful to have some of that because I was speculating when I was making. The last two things are really commission-based, and I want to go over them two ways. One, I know it's everybody's right to go to the county council and speak about hearings that we have here, but the county council also has the ability to look and see what the PLDRC does. I think that when PLDRC members go to the county council to speak, and they do it where they're saying they're part of the PLDRC and that they heard this case, I feel like it reflects the PLDRC's view, even if it's going to the county council with a recommendation of approval or denial or whatever they didn't want. So I don't know how we do that. I mean, what we do here, I think is, if you don't think that I think it's hugely important, that I know you all think it's hugely important, but when we go to the county council and we say, I'm on the PLDRC and I heard this, and I was one of the ones that, you know, either supported whatever didn't come against you, I kind of feel like it's, you know, that, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that other ones need to step up and say, well, then I'm going to go and say, well, I was one that did this. I think what we do here is very important. Then when it goes to the county council, I don't know how we address that. I know that everybody has a right to go to county council, but I don't think, I want to make sure it doesn't come off as the PLDRC. Either way, that's all I'm going to say about that. I feel like it's a sticky situation. When we vote on something here, we send it to county council, and then we also go there and speak about it. Maybe we should. So that's what I want to say about that. And the other thing is, I know that people get frustrated with me personally about questions, and I'm not saying anybody else doesn't take this seriously, but I don't think it's fair to rush a decision that somebody has to make that's very important. In this last case, I felt rushed, and now he's got an ADU that he's limited to because my mind wasn't in the right place to say, no, I don't like that motion. I'd like to change it to remove those things. So I know we all want to get out of here, but it's 11 o'clock. And
I want to address the last one. I'm not quite sure where that came from, because I asked for staff comments, gave everybody an opportunity to speak up and address it. No one said anything, and then once the vote was called for, you decided to make that comment. So, but in my opinion, as the chair of this meeting, everybody had an opportunity to address anything that they wanted to address. That's all I have to say about that.
Gotcha.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Ms. Shelley.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Here you go.
Mr. Costa.
Yeah, I'd like to actually direct it to staff. Trish, can you give us a quick update on that property on Kersey and 415, please?
This is a parcel that the PLDRC asked us to look at. There was some construction activity out near 415 and Kersey Avenue. We found that it was not appropriate to be going on at that time. Our building department did issue a stop work order. The property owner did not respond to the stop work order. And we now have met with the applicant and asked them to come in for a site plan to get an approved site plan to go through to deal with what they're doing out there.
Do
I think
we
Paolo,
know what
Jetty,
they're doing?
Information?
Do we know what they're doing? Is it a borrow pit? Is it aquaculture? Is it, what the heck is it?
And this is being handled through our land development group, and we'll need to get an update from them, and then we can bring that back.
They haven't specified what they're doing yet? The owners?
I am not aware of what's going on out there, and we'll get you that information.
I believe that they have some sort of ag classification, and the question is whether or not when January comes around, when the ag classification, dies, whether or not their continued activity is consistent and compliant with whatever ag classification remains on the property, and if not, then they're going to be subject to code compliance. I believe that's a situation, is that there is some ag thing on there. We at this point can't tell if it's a fish pond or if it's something that meets agricultural BMPs.
Right, well, I understand that, and the ag exemption, from my understanding, is it doesn't roll with the property, it rolls with the user.
Yes.
So technically, if they close on that property in July or March of this year, that ag exemption, unless they reapplied, and the owners applied for ag exemption, that ag exemption should have died right there and then.
It persists until January.
Oh, persists regardless of ownership?
I understand.
So it runs with the property until the following calendar year?
Yes.
Okay.
When they reassess it.
Wasn't aware of that one. Okay.
That's a tricky one in terms of, that's why, we're waiting.
Okay. I'm very curious what's going on over there, honestly. Thank you.
All right. Any press or citizen comments? This meeting is adjourned.
See you next year. Good job. Yeah.
Before we leave, so we can go ahead and get these minutes signed off, and then you'll just sign, and say for Chair Mills, please. Sorry, middle of your microphone.
How are you, sir?